All right, we'll call to order the Village of Lake Bluff Sustainability and Community Enhancement Ad Hoc Committee for Tuesday, February 20th. Can I get a roll call, please?
Yes. Member Busio?
Here.
Member Cole communicated they'd be absent. Member Hance? Here. Member Richer also communicated that she'd be absent. Member Twitchell? And Chair Renner.
Present.
All right, we have a quorum.
Okay. At this point, we will allow 15 minutes if anyone is here who wants to speak on something not on the agenda tonight. Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to the general business. We're going to start with the discussion of the draft lighting of the ordinance. Before we get into the packet, I'd like to give a little history. Oh, sorry. Let me roll back. With the meeting minutes, we had some minor editing, no substantive edits. Does the committee want to approve as is, or would you like an opportunity to read it for our next meeting? I understand there's been no actual substance, it's just how it read and grammar and structure.
I'll move to accept as is.
I second that.
Okay. I do as well. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, thank you. So moving to the draft lighting ordinance. I've been the chair since the start of, or co-chair since the start of the SEC committee, and lighting was on our agenda. But as you're aware, we had a number of other items to get out first, and they included the chicken ordinance, backyard chickens, the bees. We had later on a ordinance about leaf blowers, and this has been developed kind of in the background. There were presentations made several years ago. We started working on a draft ordinance, which is in the packet. And I had been involved with lighting around town. I had helped with the design of the fire station's exterior lighting, advised on Jawa's new lighting upgrades, and helped in various ways around town. But I'm kind of a general practitioner. I'm not an expert in dark skies. So we wrote the ordinance to a point, and we got it to a point internally where we felt that we needed to then take it to the next level and really bring in the best expert we could get to do comments on the draft ordinance. So I was aware of John Barentine. Just a little bit about him, just for the audience. He is principal consultant at Dark Sky Consulting LLC out of the Arizona area, and provides advice and professional services related to outdoor lighting management plans, and provides advice to professional services related to outdoor lighting management plans and public policies. Prior to having his consulting firm, his past experience included several years as the Director of Public Policy and Conservation for the International Dark Sky Association. John has a PhD and Masters of Science from the University of Texas at Austin. So John speaks regularly on this topic, and we felt with his public policy expertise, rather than, in addition to his technical expertise, to be a perfect one to advise the village. So that's kind of where we got to finally, and this will be one of several public meetings that we will have, workshops, education. So we're not going to decide anything tonight, but we'd like to just start the discussion process to get input from residents to get some ideas, probably move to several different additional draft versions of the ordinance, and move along. When we did the chicken and bee ordinances, and when we did the leaf blower ordinances, those took many months, and many meetings, and many input. We don't want to simply as a committee decide and move forward. We want to involve the public. We want to educate the public. We want time to think about these, because there are some very technical issues. If you're not into lighting, there's a lot of detail here and a lot of discussion. And we've already gone back to John with one question that came up from the public in the letters regarding the temperature, lighting temperature at 3,000 Kelvin, and what the meaning was besides behind the Dark Sky Association recommending 3,000 K. So that said, giving you a history and kind of outlining where we want to go in the future, I'd like to first open it up to initial comments and thoughts from the committee, and then I would like to invite members of the public if you have questions, comments, and then circle back to the committee for next steps. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Okay. Who would like to go first with their comments, thoughts on what they've seen so far?
I can.
Okay.
So Chairman Renner, just to clarify, I think in our earlier discussions, we had, our thoughts were to make such a recommendation on an ordinance to be both applicable for commercial and residential
Right, and public.
and public things such as.
Yes, that was
public buildings and
always the
things.
general goal.
Okay. Which I think is good. We approached that similarly with the leaf blowers, and, it just took a lot of confusion about, if we were applying it to individuals or we were applying it to commercial landscaping companies, and I think it just keeps it consistent. And the fact is, I think a lot of our community, we're not heavily commercial, village. We tend to be, I think, more residential, especially on the east side, certainly, residential and public. Some small commercial, and then, we have more commercial as we go west, which certainly, could use some, taking a look at that. I'm excited about this. I think we're moving in the right direction. I know it's been a lot of work that you've taken, with consultants and peers, and you've been involved in this a long time.
Yeah.
I've heard from a lot of community members, some of which are here tonight, some which wrote letters, expressing their interest in us advancing this. Similar to our path on the leaf blowers, they wanted us to go faster versus slower. They want transitions to be less lengthy and shorter. And I think we can look at that in terms of recommendations and maybe differentiate between commercial and residential in terms of any kinds of grandfathering or transition times we would make. I'm glad to see so many people that are interested in the effects that this lighting has, not just on us, but that has on our dark sky, which really is not just about stargazing, which is wonderful to think that we could preserve at least where we are, because we've lost so much, but also on birds, insects, circadian rhythms of all living things and plants, which are so important to our environment. The other thing that I would just like to pass on for consideration is many of you know of Lee Sacknoff, who lived on Mountain with his wife Cheryl. Lee passed away this last year. Lee was a good friend of mine, a neighbor across the ravine, and we shared a lot of interest in things like sustainability. And Lee would talk to me about lighting, and we were on a path to see if we can get ComEd to do something about the street lights. Particularly, there's one right outside Cheryl's residence now that is really bright, and it glares. So Lee and I were on a path until his untimely passing this last year, 2023. Lee told me stories. He has a small cabin up in Beaver, Michigan, in the Upper Peninsula. And his daughter, Rachel, at his memorial service, talked about how her dad took her up there and showed her the stars when she was a little child. And Lee reminisced that story to me before his death and talked about how different it is when he goes up to that cabin still and can see the dark sky and so many constellations, and how it's sad that we're losing that here, and what could we do? So my thought is, if we could advance this, I'd like to see if we consider perhaps doing such an honor of Lee Sacknoff and his passion for the environment and his passion for the things that this would focus on. I have not talked to his wife about that. Cheryl, I'd want to get her okay if we were to proceed with that, but I throw that out for consideration.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm happy to speak about this. First, I'd like to talk about the report that we received. It's engaging, it's informative. It's going to take a few times reading through it to really grasp a lot of the concepts. But what I was struck by is that our consultant engages us right in the beginning. He talks about the evaluation of Lake Bluff light emissions, so we can all relate to that. He's got a beautiful map that clearly indicates where the brightest lights are and where, lights are, pretty decent in terms of emissions. Then in the rest of his report, he gives us things we can latch onto, like 5 principles for responsible outdoor lighting. I would want to read that. Value-centered outdoor lighting, that speaks to a lot of the things that we all care about. Responsible outdoor lighting at night manifesto. That sounds like a must-read. And then International Dark Sky Program guidelines. So I feel like this is a dense document, but the way he's written it is very engaging, and it makes me want to read it again so I can learn more. The other thing I was struck by is some of the letters that we received about dark sky. And I began thinking about how can we go about encouraging people, inspiring people to change deeply ingrained beliefs about lighting and habits about lighting. And it made me think about the other ways that we've been successful in changing deeply held beliefs. And one of the examples I think we can all remember and relate to was that everybody could smoke wherever they wanted to smoke. And the thinking was, it's my body, it's my life, I have a right to smoke. But the thinking was, you can smoke if you want, but you can't harm other humans. Same thing with seatbelts. It's my car, it's my body, I don't want to wrinkle my dress, why should I have to wear seatbelts all the time? Well, because it was proven that if you don't, it not only could harm you, but it could harm others, other humans. So the changes that we've made, mask is another one, COVID masks. Sure, if you don't care about wearing a mask, that's fine, but you may harm others, and that's why you need to do it. So the successful changes we've made have all been centered on how it will affect humans. And what we've seen in the letters that we've received is that, yes, lighting will impact our circadian rhythms, and that's not good for us. But then I think Katie Ahern spoke eloquently when she said all living things have circadian rhythm. All living things can be harmed by not giving plants, animals, insects, every living thing a dark night. And so I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's a good way to start. We've been successful with changing deeply ingrained habits and beliefs, but they've all based on how it could harm humans, therefore you should change. So I'd like to broaden that scope and say, it's not just us, it's every living thing, and we're all connected, and that's why we need to make changes. So it's an exciting place to begin. It's so comprehensive, and I can't wait to see where this leads us.
Thank you.
So super excited that this is back. It's been percolating in the background. We worked on it a couple years ago, and great to see it coming back. Loved seeing the experts' guidance, refreshing it, bringing it up to date with language and technology. So anyway, I think we're on the right track. And I have to say, I loved, we clearly are working in concert with the community, because the community comments that we've gotten, align with exactly our thinking. So nice to know we're not functioning on our own, but are representing what people are really interested in. And really appreciated the articles and links and videos that were shared. I learned a few new things that I'm grateful to know. So anyway, I think it seems like we're on the right track, and look forward to more public comment.
So I'll add a few things that I found in this report of interest. He did a great job in analyzing the village in terms of both historical and current lighting output. He made a comment couple of comments. One was the fact that the village over time, if you look through 2012 through 2024, has not significantly increased in its light pollution output. Now, I was on the board, and in fact, deeply involved in the development of the Target site, the development of the elementary school. So we have had some significant increases or changes in development, the amount of lighting. But when those developments came before the board at that time when I was on there, we asked them to follow lead in leadership in energy and environmental design standards, and the lighting fixtures in the parking lots and on the with timers and controls and light levels were all developed to the lead standards at the time. So I think his statement that, you know, you've been a stable community and nothing's happened, well, a lot of things have actually happened in the town. But I think it's great that we've been stable. Now, the residential areas more or less have stayed the same, except in my opinion, there's been a lot more landscape lighting installed in the last couple of years, particularly over COVID, which I understand people are at home and want to feel good about being outside. It was great to see the color map and see how well we're doing compared to maybe some of our neighbors to the south. I think the village is doing really well in its light output. You can see the one area of the village, which is our industrial park, which is more towards the darker colors, which is fairly clear. I loved his principles, his 5 principles of outdoor lighting and the value-centered. I think those should definitely be up front in our ordinance, really stating what our mission and values are as a community. There's some discussions, I think, he talks about different standards, for instance, the International Dark Sky Communities. Those are different than, say, what they might do for a park, and are more focused on guidelines and principles, which I think is great to think about. There was some discussion in both the emails and in the standard about the color temperature and what we should set as a guideline. Right now, John is recommending, well, he's not recommending, the International Dark Sky current standards are recommending not to exceed 3,000. I know that there's some discussion on 2,500 K. There's some very technical discussions John has given us feedback on about what is blue, how do animals perceive light, what are the particular wavelengths in blue. So it gets really deep, but I think I do respect as his expertise that 3,000 as an exceeded technology is great. Another reason he gave in our email was where the current technology and lighting is right now as we look at updating the lighting, and the 3,000 K fixtures are more readily available than 2,500 K. And that brings up another point, how much has changed since we even 4 years started writing this? This will be a living municipal standard. It has to be. 3 or 4 years from now, the technology is going to be so much better and so much more different. Sorry, I'm going on and on. There were a number of, there was always an intent, at least from my standpoint, when we talked about that this lighting standard would apply to all parts of the community, residential, commercial, and municipal, and not really exempt those unless under specific standards. We did develop at one point an overlay, a map of zones in Lake Bluff. We need to dig that up and bring that back to the committee where the different, where residential was, where parks were, where the commercial was, and how the lighting codes would, the lighting zone, which you see on starting on page 11, applies to various parts of Lake Bluff. I wanted to talk about, we already talked about sustainability and impacting residents and life, but a big part of the codes, especially in Illinois, are on controls and energy. And I think Illinois has some very good codes for when lights have to go off, when they should be dimmed, and those are part of the Illinois Energy Code. So I think we need to take a look at that and see where the current state of the standard is, because those Illinois Energy Codes, like any code, get revised, but sometimes communities won't adopt the latest code for 4 or 5 years because they're just in the process of their building code standards. So I think we need to take a look at where those are at, but some of those have already been implemented. I helped advise on the middle school parking lot lighting, and one of the parts of the code is that not only do they come on at a certain time, but then they go to half power at a certain time and then off at a certain time. So there's a stepped approach. I really like the statement of legislative intent. That's really great on page 14. And most of his suggestions is where we should, he liked our ordinance as far as it was taken, but what he's made, the suggestions in each section are very clearly identified. I had no issues with most of his recommendations. And then he took all of his recommendations and then actually went and marked up and redlined our ordinance for that. So he did a very thorough job. I'm very pleased with the work he put in. And there's a lot for us to look at. I'm hoping that what we do is we take input from the community, we do some more education, we revise the ordinance, we send them a final ordinance, get feedback, get the community feedback, and then be able to get this to the board. It may have to go to the planning commission or the architectural board as well for review. We are an advisory committee, so our recommendations then go to the board. But I can tell you the board is very positive and interested in having a model lighting ordinance. I think that is all the comments I had so far. There is a lot to go over. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over. If anyone, either online or in the audience, would like to speak. If you would like to speak, please come up to the podium. If you're here in person, give your name and address. If you're online, just give us your name and address and raise your hand. So come to the podium and name and address.
And just one small note, I actually was the one that did this red line, just so.
Jeez, I'm so
just-
sorry.
and I
I'm so
only
sorry.
tell you that because just if you see something that maybe doesn't look quite right or you want to change, this was me taking that report and
Thank
trying
you
my
so
best
much.
to.
Thank you so much. Credit
that in.
changed. Credit
That's
changed.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Hi, my name is Hal Himmelstein. I live at 609 East Center Avenue. I'd like to commend the ad hoc committee for the great work that you're doing, and just the presentation tonight indicates that you're focused and are doing due diligence for the community, and thank you very much for that. I think I understand, second or third hand, that the ad hoc committee will be doing work for the World Migratory Bird Day on May the 11th. I believe, if that's the
Part of our
case.
bird city.
So as part of the Bird City application, we had to come up with a World Migratory Bird Day event that would take place. And what
Right.
we suggested was that we would have a speaker typically at our May SEC meeting. So I know that the theme is insects. So we're
Right.
trying to currently find a speaker that can
Good.
talk about that.
Yeah, apropos of that, that's the reason I wanted to do that. May is a wonderful month, usually, and it's actually the confluence of three different things that the community has been involved with. One is No Mo May. Another one is the May 11th World Migratory Bird Day, and the informal Lights Out movement. And the World Migratory Bird Day theme this year is very interesting because it ties in with what a number of people in the community here have been discussing on their own. And that is, this year it's devoted to insects. And so the idea would be that with the No Mow May, and you don't mow the grass, the insects have a place to go. With the Lights Out, the moths and other insects will be protected so that when the birds come through on this wonderful flyway on Lake Michigan, they will have insects to eat and will be able to feed their young at the appropriate time. And the poster this year, I don't have a copy. The poster is really interesting because it sort of combines insects and birds And it's really quite engaging. That'll be the international poster. And so it would be really great if the community and the ad hoc committee could find a way to integrate these three ideas of the nomome, the lights out, and the migrating birds that are coming up the flyway into some sort of an educational packet or presence somewhere, even if it's putting up signs like we did last year in various, public venues, that would begin to start what you were talking about in your work here, the educational process. And it's an easy process. You're not like telling people to turn off their lights and do all this. You're trying to sort of show them how dimming the lights would help do this along with other things, and to get them to see that the whole thing is an integrated package. So I would just urge the ad hoc committee to find a way with the administration to sort of put together a public presentation of some sort. The other thing that this may be we talked to the librarian about maybe somehow getting the young children to have a hands-on workshop with putting little things on the windows and teaching them that if you do certain things on the windows, the birds won't fly into them. And it's a way to get the young people involved in sort of an arts and crafts way into this process. So it seems like May is a great time to launch something, and I just thought I'd throw that out to the group to think about. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good thoughts. Appreciate it.
Anyone else like to come up?
Hi, I'm Ann Vertivek from 335 Briar Lane. I think you got some emails about some other comments about the ordinance, and one I wanted to mention relevant to the Migratory Bird Day, although they don't necessarily migrate, is the owls in our community and other night flyers, and really trying to educate the townsfolk about all that. Also, we're trying to save the owls, and there's other things we can do, which is avoid the rodenticides outside, but specifically for our wooded areas like the ravines. Right now, we have some lights really shining in the ravines, and with the upcoming construction on the Glen pedestrian path, this may be a nice time to reassess those lights as they're going to be reinstalled or whatever, to try to minimize lights in especially the areas that people, aren't your backyards, but are common areas with trees for the birds. So, thanks.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, one of the things we talked about was, if you look at page 11 and 12, was the lighting zones and the rules that would apply differently to certain areas, wooded areas. And I think we need to dig that up, if not redo it,
Right.
so that we can identify certain areas for extra protection and extra requirements. And anyone else online or in the audience? Does Christine have her hand raised? Or?
Yeah, Christine, if you're interested in talking, there's a raise hand button at the bottom.
If she cannot see it, I hope she can. She should.
I was gonna say, we can also do this and just check
Yeah,
in.
just ask her. Yeah, I want to make sure everyone is clear.
Thank you. I don't think I have a question at this time.
Okay, thank you for listening.
Thank you.
You know what, I'd like to add one more thing, and this is in section 2, the introduction and background. Our consultant talks about low-density use of light in open spaces such as Shore Acres, Lake Bluff Golf Course, public natural spaces like Carolyn Gates Wetland Preserve, and part of the Skokie River Preserve. I would like to see us add ravines to this.
Yeah.
Because, as Ann said, we're getting feedback about light trespassing into these really special natural areas. So if we could just make sure that we mention ravines when we talk about all these other natural areas.
Right, I think if we've got a detailed map, we may be, I know the beach area was one of the low zone, but whether does that extend like a little divot into the ravines would be
Yes.
something we would need to look at.
Yes.
Okay? So I'll open it back up, if there's no more public comments, I'll open it back up to the board, and then we can talk about next steps.
Claire, would you be able to pull up those two pictures I sent you and
Yes.
display them? And this is getting into lighting, and as she does that, I'll just make a couple additional comments. One of the letters from Luciana Tylenitz, I don't know if she is here, or, okay.
No.
So she wrote a really nice letter, as everybody did, but talked about the village streetlights as well. You know, the brightness, the blue of them, and I think, you know, we certainly are going to include those, but, you know, I don't know if those fall into public, commercial, or if that is considered utility.
Right.
But I want to make sure we
Yeah,
still address that.
As I remember my discussions with Drew, most of the lighting is ComEd, areas we cannot, mandate.
Yes.
But there are a few light fixtures that are village-owned and would fall under the municipal regulations in this ordinance.
But could we, Chairman, decide that we don't want those lights there? I mean, does ComEd have authority to say we need lights at certain spots in our village?
Yeah, I don't know, I think it would depend, if the roadway, again, I wish Drew was here, or maybe you have some opinion, but if they're roadways that we own, that they're village roadways, we may have a say in whether a light is needed there.
Yes.
But if they're state or county roads like Green Bay,
Yeah.
we cannot
Yeah.
determine what's there and what's not, because those are IDOT standards.
Right.
So I think that would I think we should look into that. Let's put that in the
Okay.
to-do list.
Okay.
I know that like the train station, those are all ComEd and that's Metro, so
Yeah,
again,
that's I understand.
we can,
Right.
I think they're better than what they used to be, but they could be better.
It's just interesting as you go from our village commercial area here, which has very nice ornamental, I think they're good lighting now in terms of power and color. And then as you drive further, in some of our residential streets, you see these big, tall
Yeah,
ones that are extremely bright, extremely blue, and they're certainly not charming. I mean, I'd love to see the village
Yeah.
possibly as a tag-on to this, say, why don't we put nice ornamental, if we're gonna need streetlights, why don't we put some ornamental ones? It's not that many. And, in my old neighborhood, when we lived in central Illinois, the city got together with the community and our homeowners, and we split the cost over like a 5-year period of assessment, and it was nominal. But anyway,
yeah, no, I agree.
think we should, if we could take a look at that. So I thank Luciana for that. The other thing she asked was that we, perhaps the grandfather of, and I know we're going to look at this, reducing that and delineating between maybe, right now, I think the document said 10 years maybe of a grandfather clause. As you know, lighting is moving so fast, it's relatively a lot less expensive than it was before. I think we can have maybe a 5-year or something. We can look at this for commercial and even less for residential, because what we'd be asking residential people to do is basically change bulbs, dim it, turn it off, shield it. Very low, I think, expense, and not something that we'd have to commercially they have to do.
I think, I'll tell you, just sharing my time on the board, we're going to have to get advisory from the village and maybe the village attorney. Historically, on building codes, you cannot, in any new building code, you cannot make a house go to the latest standard, okay?
Right.
I think there's some legal precedence there, and there's some property rights. What we did when there was an ordinance to include sprinklers in new housing construction, and then it came up, well, what do we do about the existing housing stock, because it's important to safety. What we did at the time was we implemented something as part of the building permit, that if they were adding so many square footage to the home, there might have been a certain value that they were putting into the house, but I seem to remember square footage. We knew at the time the dollar value of installing a sprinkler system into a home, and it's much more expensive now, but back then, let's say it was $6,000 or $7,000 to put sprinklers in, that if a person was spending $150,000 for an addition or $200,000, whatever they were doing, that another $5,000 is
They could absorb that.
peanuts.
Sure.
So I think that as we discuss this further in the next couple of meetings,
Sure.
and we look at whether we're really gonna, I think it's easy on the commercial side, but as we look at the residential, whether we're really gonna have some sort of a grandfathering where we can say to a private property owner, yeah, no, you gotta do this, because there could be someone living on a fixed income, there could be a senior, there could be whatever issues, but I know that legally or from an ordinance standpoint, if someone's going to request a permit, then there are opportunities to do that.
Sure. And a lot of this will be, as we know, education and awareness,
Mm-hmm.
and, hopefully voluntary adoption of our recommendations or whatever becomes eventually that. I just put this up, I asked Claire to put this up. This is a picture from my patio door looking out a couple nights ago at a neighbor's house. And I don't need to identify it, but it's an example of, this is at night, about 10 o'clock. And there's various forms of outdoor lighting, which, are certainly pretty bright. And a lot of them are strung up in trees. So there's a lot of commercial lighting companies now that are really, I'm getting mailings, I don't know if you get mailings from Mike's Lighting Company, and they will promote how they can enhance the beauty of your house, the value of your house, and they literally are coming out and running cables, stapling them up to oak trees, 30, 40 feet in the air, and shining them down as floodlights on the yard, in addition to uplighting and unshielding lighting. So there may be some specific things about, I think it's horrible to cable lights up into a living species, to run a cable with electricity running into it up into an oak tree. Who knows what that is doing to that organism, let alone, I think, the audacity to say that I'm going to staple my lights up into this thing because it happens to be on my yard. So
I think that would be easy to regulate because,
Yeah.
especially with the companies, and it's anything that would go in after this could be regulated, permitted.
Right.
And
Right.
if something was to be installed, just like anything in a house, if they didn't get a building permit, there could be an issue.
Yeah.
Where they have to take
Yeah.
it down.
Right.
We're
Right.
not big into fines.
So
we can make them pull it
I
down.
mean, we all have, thoughts of this. We probably all, have particular lighting issues that are this. Again, I'm not singling anyone out. I just wanted to show this. This happens to be along the lake. So it's certainly a migratory path, the bird path.
And even with this, even if you didn't take the lights out, it is so easy to add a timer to this.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, sure, it might be bad between 8 and 10, but at least you get it off after 10, right?
Yeah.
So there are definitely easier ways to do this.
I think Christine has a question.
Thank you, Clara.
Absolutely.
Oh, there's a hand. Yeah.
I know the board is, or the.
No, that's
committee is
fine.
discussing. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Christine, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I was wondering if you could explain how schools would fall into an ordinance, since they wouldn't really be considered a commercial and definitely not a residential. I'm thinking particularly of some of the lighting at the middle school, which was redone in their parking lot, the west parking lot, really done very nicely so that it does shine down and is shielded from above. But there are about 5 or 6 post lights closer to the west side of the school that have quite a bit of glare, similar to the lights that are by the public library. And I know that some people have commented about those as being problematic. So if you, and not only the lighting on the outside, but often the indoor lighting, the gym area is lit up and it has large windows that emit that light quite brightly, um, for that end of the street, causing quite a bit of pollution, if you will. And I'm wondering how schools would fit into any ordinance.
The schools would be covered by the ordinance.
Okay.
I was involved in the parking lot of the middle school in reviewing that, and the process we've had a couple times on various projects from the school to Jawa was they came to the village board requesting a permit or a variation from zoning, in which case it kind of opens up the books to input of why we should approve this permit or what we should do. And often the people at that point, if they're doing new lighting or doing an addition, they're amenable to what's the best way to do it. We have very good, their schools or people are very concerned about this. So at that particular time, they asked for a review and my input on lighting. We talked about controls and some changes in the fixtures. So that's one way the schools does, is that, again, like with a home, if they come in for permits, they come in for renovations, there would be an opportunity for them to begin to implement those new lighting standards, or to upgrade various lights as part of the permitting process. So I think, and anything that they would do new, of course, would be under that.
Yes.
Again, we've got to be careful about just randomly saying, well, you got to do this now. But there would be opportunities. The schools are always doing renovations, and there may be opportunities at each time over a couple of years to bring those up to speed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah, we talked about the grandfathered. I think that might be one thing we're going to need a lot more discussion about enforcement. We'll need some advisement from the village and the attorney on best ways to do that. I definitely think that the local governments, with the leaf blower ordinance, we had to discuss the park district, right? So this is a village ordinance, and the village, in terms of building standards, has authority over all land within the extent of the village, so.
The only other thing I'd add is, when you were talking about, trying to get people to transition in their homes or to transition faster than 10 years, maybe, I don't have an answer at all, but maybe we can think about incentives, reasons for people to want to make the change, beyond educate, something. I
Right.
don't know what it would be.
Well, I think that can also be part of the public education process. People may not understand how easy it is these days to change out a switch to a smart switch, or to pick a light bulb when they're ready to replace something.
Right.
So
But
they're
light bulbs, the wall of light bulbs is overwhelming, says me. So
Yeah.
having someone show me, this is the one you should get,
Yeah.
I don't know, just making it easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not providing the information,
Yeah.
maybe it's an information booth,
Yeah.
or there's a discount for lighting, or, I don't know,
I
something.
was thinking along those same lines, of, could we offer some kind of audit, like a home, instead of a home energy audit, which utilities offer, a home lighting audit.
Right.
And show them if, where are they? And, what's the spectrum, and how many lumens is on their property, and how much of it is falling outside of property lines, and, we could do all kinds of things to
Yeah.
incentivize people to, oh, I didn't realize this was having such an impact on the environment, I can simply turn them off.
Yeah.
Cut the wire on those trees or something. Some of it might not be expense. Yeah.
Yeah, I know some people are hesitant about installing smart controls, but I was an earlier adopter of Alexa, and there is a way to buy light switches that work with Alexa, and that you can issue commands, issue routines by just verbally saying it, like I have my holiday lights.
Yeah.
I have a controller, a wireless controller that plugs into the outdoor lights, and I just say, Alexa, turn on the outdoor lights at sunset and turn them off 2 hours later. And she just says, okay, I will do that.
Yeah.
So there are ways, and it also has adaptive, like, it sent me a message the other day. I noticed you left your living room lights on. I went ahead and shut them off at midnight. I hope that's okay. So, yeah, maybe it's getting a little too smart, but those are part of the education process of ways that people can look at automating or putting controls within their home.
You know, I would add one more thing. We got a great letter from one of our neighbors and friends, Mickey Collins, speaking about how we can make change. And she wrote things like place messages on signboards at Green Bay and Rockland. Isn't that a great opportunity there? Include detailed articles on the Bluff and include reminders from time to time in the Lake Bluff letter. So my point in bringing this up is that there's a way to encourage change from the top down, from where we are, and then passing an ordinance on. But there's also a way for us as individuals to make changes. And I think one of the things we could do is, promote this grassroots effort and maybe create a document that says, here's how you could talk to your neighbors about lights. You know, it's going to take a while for us to go through the formal process of an ordinance, but there's nothing stopping us now from talking to a neighbor about, what do you think about I think if we give people tools
Right.
to talk to neighbors, that would be a great step forward. And the other thing is that as far as strategies for change, we have the leaf blower ordinance and all the steps that we took to make that happen, that can be there for us. Just like leaf blower, we reached out to neighboring communities to ask how they did it. So I think we all know it's good to turn our lights off. That we can all agree on. It's, in the context of, well, how do I make that happen in real life? So I think one of the things we can do as a committee is to come up with ways to say, here's a nice way to talk to your neighbors about this.
Yeah, I think there's a way too to promote the things they have done, because the village has made some improvements. We could feature dark sky influenced lighting designs. We could talk about the parking lot at the school, we could talk about Target, we could talk about the fire station. But we could also then, maybe in terms of promoting, is if residents are willing to follow our guidelines, what if they had Lighting Star Award
Yes.
signs that were provided to put in their yards, and people go, oh, this person has a Lighting Star Award, what is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So people could see how their neighbors were doing it, and, let me go ask John how he did this.
Right. Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah, the educational portion has to happen. Okay. I know we have one other topic on bicycle planning to talk about, so I'd like to take our comments. I'd like to certainly work with the administration here on next steps for revising the ordinance, taking some of the things I think we all kind of agreed with, the easy takes, and getting those picked up, and then talk about next steps.
Great.
Okay. You're welcome to stay here for the bicycle planning ordinance, or if you wish to leave, that's okay too. Thank you. Oh,
One of the things that I found very effective, because I guess I read it, that's why, is the Lake Bluff newsletter that comes out. And they've mentioned lights before, and I just think when you hear from them every week, and that could be coming up every week in the newsletter, just like a reminder, I find that such an easy thing. And it goes to most houses, I'm presuming.
yes.
So I just would say keep going with that one, because it's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for coming.
Okay, do you want to lead us on the bicycle report?
So at the last SEC meeting, it was brought up that a goal for 2024 would be to kind of bring up the topic of bike planning again. It was last discussed at the SEC's October 18th, 2022 meeting. And basically, improving bicycle and pedestrian transportation was a major topic of the village's sustainability plan adopted in 2019. And in a memo that staff provided, we basically wanted to provide just updates on the different efforts, and then also kind of ask you guys to review and provide feedback on priorities and next steps. So I'm not sure if you want to discuss what's there, or if you want to go through each individual one and talk about some of the changes.
Well, this has been another key area of mine besides lighting. There are a couple of, this is all good, but there are a couple of focuses of mine, and some of this involves funding from the village and the village board to the finance committee to make commitments. We've long recommended additional and better secure biking storage at the train station. That frankly has still not been done. It's not a complex step. You just have to pull up the old style bicycle racks, which are not capable of using U-locks.
Yeah.
We've had significant theft. I've had neighbors, I've had myself lose a bike at the train station. I think what's happening, at least I've noticed in the last 9 months, is that more people are heading back downtown, at least for part of the week.
Right.
So the trains are getting fuller again than where they were a year or two ago. And with the warm weather coming up, people should feel safe to leave their bike at the train station. I think that there are opportunities for more secure bike parking near the village green for the events that we have. And I know that this also has to be coordinated with the architectural and planning boards, excuse me, who have worked on a downtown development plan and included some bike storage. I know that the general feedback was that people don't necessarily want a secure rack, they just want someplace to lean their bike, but I would say that it would be better that we have more than less. So in terms of investing in more racks and more, and I'm saying attractive racks, not just secure racks. They might have a nice blue color. We talked at one point of maybe the end cap of a series of racks having, the village logo hanging from it or something to really make it attractive.
Sure.
The other thing that I'm pushing for, which will probably require some investment by the village, is connecting the bike paths that go along, that we have now, through the downtown and to the beach. Right now, the thought is, well, you can just go out into the road, but I don't want an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old navigating center, even though it's not a lot of traffic normally. Also, I would like to be able to, in terms of the farmer's market or getting to the brewery or Innovasi, I'd like to make it real easy to just pull off that bike path at the train station and know where the safe path was and where the racks were to park and leave my bike to have a beer or have dinner or whatever. And then how do you go from there to the beach, down to the beach, and enjoy the beach? So I think that that's going to require more discussion, more planning, and may require a bike path, a sidewalk, barriers, little plastic strips, So from my standpoint, just my opinion, those are two things that we need to focus on. I don't know, given there's a number of great ideas. I think these are all great ideas, but what we want to do.
But it sounded like some of the more security at the train station was already in the works. Is that right? That it's been budgeted and it's going to happen?
The village will be installing new U-shaped bike racks. I don't know if they'll be kind of the logo ones that you're talking about at this point, but that's something.
Will they be in the same place?
So there's a project right now to enhance certain areas of the, or that the village will be considering to add some greenery and some plantings, and there was sculpture or statue that used to be near Innovasi that the village is looking at moving back over there. So as part of that, I don't know exactly where they would be, but I think they would be near the building.
Because I know that where they've been, they're sort of out of sight. And so my husband's had his bike stolen 3 times trying to bike to work. So I think the location makes it easy for someone to do something without people looking. So anyway, I'm hugely supportive of that. We have a neighbor who bikes all the time to the train, but he goes to Lake Forest. I mean, he's a Lake Bluff resident, but he goes to Lake Forest because he feels that he can actually leave his bike there. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah,
So anyway, I think that's an important
I would
priority.
encourage, we had a concern when the downtown development kind of came to us late in the game, and the SEC didn't have a chance to give its input early in.
Right.
So if bikes are truly funded in any part of the village, or they're planning to do anything with racks, and I know some of this falls in the architectural board's priority, it'd be great if we could get the plan and how many racks are going in, when they're going in, and have a chance to look at it. You know, even if it's just like, we're gonna put in 12 and here's a cut sheet, and a little sketch of where they're gonna go. I think we don't wanna be reactive to, oh, they were installed last week because we move forward. I think the SEC wants to see it before.
And then I agree with you, with so many events happening on the green. I mean, I just think of other communities, like in Martha's Vineyard or wherever, there's a street near the main, where there's just racks of bicycles, and everyone knows, you go there, you drop your bike, you go to town, like you have a
Right.
place that's safe to leave your stuff. So, and we're sort of missing that on the scale of the events that we have in the green.
Yeah, and I wouldn't tell someone on the green to go to the train station to leave their bike.
No.
There are we did talk at one point, the previous assistant administrator talked about the shelter that's outside the Lake Forest train station.
Yeah.
Maybe having that closer to the road so you can see it immediately. There was the discussion of putting in maybe racks near the green. I know that they didn't like the idea of losing a parking spot, but I think that that's worth at least discussing. If it was gonna set up an area for bike storage, with little curbs so their bikes wouldn't get hit. I think we want to do more to encourage and have more spots around town where people can leave their bikes.
Absolutely.
And encourage shopping and using of the restaurants too,
And
so,
farmer's market and
Yeah.
all that.
yeah.
Well, it's so hard to park. If, for example, if you want to go to the farmer's market,
Yes.
it'd be much
Right.
nicer to ride a bike
Take your bike.
Yeah, I agree,
if you have baskets.
Yeah.
yeah.
And you know
Sophia,
what?
when you mentioned like Forest, and your husband going there because it's safer.
A neighbor.
Is it, I mean, do we know all the elements of that we should be looking at? That, I mean, is it the racks, is it the location, is it the lighting, is it cameras? I mean, it'd be interesting to know what the holistic,
I can ask.
what makes it such a
that
better
neighbor.
environment and see if we
Well,
can
if you
incorporate
go
that.
down there, you'll see the shelter, and it's not underneath the awnings, not hidden underneath. It is, so it's readily available. If someone was trying to steal a bike, you would see it, transparent, you would see it. It is covered by the rain, so it's covered from rain and
Yeah.
snow. And then the bike racks that they do use are the ones that it will accommodate the ultra-secure U-lock,
New locks, yeah.
which are really what you want. You don't want to use cables and
But
chains.
they also, their train station has more walkability, retail shoppers traffic there, I think, than ours does.
Yeah.
That keep an eye, people would notice more than our train station.
I believe at one point, and I don't know what happened with it, they installed a camera, security camera near the racks, so I don't know what the status of that is.
Okay.
But I think it would go a long way I ended up, after my bike got stolen, I ended up figuring out a way to jury rig using those old racks. Basically, I have to put the bike over the bar and it scrapes up my bike, and then I got a German U-lock, which you would have to bring in an industrial saw, and it would take you 15 minutes to get through. It almost costs as much as the bike, but
Yeah.
I was mad. I was like, you're not getting my bike ever
Yeah.
again. But, these racks are set up so that the U-lock will go through properly. I think a lot of it comes to deterrence. If it's gonna make a lot of noise and take them, 10 minutes to get through one of these things, they're not gonna do it.
You know, the thing that struck me when you were talking about, I'd like to ride my bike to Mavry's or Farmer's Market or the post office, if we took one story, I want to ride my bike down the bike path, park it, so I can go to the post office, and then implement that plan, we would learn so much by doing it. We could plan it, and then in the process of doing it, we would learn, oh, this is where I should park my bike. Here's where I could walk my bike across the road and park it. So, and I also think that that's a scenario approach or a case approach is engaging and gets people thinking, yeah, that would be nice if I could just ride my bike to go get stamps or put a package in the mail. So again, it's this idea of connecting to people in a real life way that I really like. As soon as you started talking about, well, I'd like to be able to do this or that, I thought, that would be nice to do, but I don't know how to really make it happen.
Right.
So just taking one story and doing that successfully builds a foundation for changes down the road. That's what I was thinking.
Mariette, I think you're right. I think storytelling is really important. So
Yes.
sharing those kind of successes or giving people another way to think of it. And you guys all know this, but your built environment sort of manages your behavior. So you think about, this was an epiphany for me a number of years ago. You go into any medical building and you walk right up to an elevator. Well, it's about your health. Like, why don't you walk up to the stairs and then you have to actually find the elevator, right? Like, I'm a stair person, so you have to really search often for the stairs. So why wouldn't it be the same here, where the easiest thing is to walk somewhere or to bike somewhere, and parking maybe isn't the first thing, so give up a parking spot so to accommodate more bikes. Like, make it easy for people to walk and bike and minimize
Yeah,
their carbon footprint.
in terms of the story, and I know the market is a different situation, but just in a normal summer, I remember riding my bike, on the bike path. I'm in the East Terrace, riding it down the bike path. It was great. I get to the train station, I get to the sidewalk, and I'm like, I'm just gonna take the sidewalk. There's no people on it. And I get to the sidewalk, and right in the village green on the sidewalk is a big picture with a bike in it. Don't
Right.
take your bike here.
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay. Where am I supposed to take it?
Where was that?
On the sidewalk in the village green, a big sign with a red thing through a bike symbol.
That doesn't give a good message.
No, and I know what they're saying is that it wasn't at the time of the village market, but basically what they're saying is you can walk here, but you can't ride your bike. And then you're like, well, where should I ride my bike? Well, you should ride it on the
sidewalks?
street.
Yeah.
Or why don't you walk your bike?
You could walk, that's.
Well,
trying to
yeah,
promote walking
but walk your bike
that's-
here even, or one of the things we talked about as an option is, what if we installed a second sidewalk that was painted green with the bike symbol on it? Okay,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
gonna be $50,000 or whatever to build that sidewalk, but that is like, oh, I go here. So there are ways, or a direction of walk your bike or bike path here, and imagine if they, if they cut the curb more and put in a strip along the parking lots. They took back maybe, 4 foot of the village green curb, put a curb for a car, and then there was a green path, and it was clear from when you got that this is where I should go to Mavry, this is where I should go to the post office, and I don't have to think about cars hitting me.
Yes.
Be great for kids.
Or kids.
Kids, right.
Right, and, okay, take it from the post office, what about if I want to get down to the beach? What is the proper way to get down
Yes.
to the beach?
So the story is, I'm gonna stop at the post office, drop this off, and then I'm gonna go down to the beach and read my book.
Right, and I know that from a code standpoint, they will say we're a small town, and the codes say the traffic is not that heavy on Center or whatever as you go to the beach, and you should just take that. But I think, kids, maybe people just want to bike and not have to focus so much on what's happening with cars. And really, who should the village be for? Should it be people who want to walk, want to bike, or is it for cars?
I think there'd be an opportunity when they do this deep tunnel project that's gonna go down north, that
Right.
you could incorporate, because that street's gonna be all torn up.
Right,
And, you know, you can incorporate that, at least get you down to Maple and then jog over,
yeah.
you know.
I,
with path.
I would just like it to be, because when you're on the bike path, and I don't do a ton of biking, but sometimes my daughter and I go down to Culver's, take the bike path. And it's just easier, just biking, you're not thinking, you're not worried about a car, maybe someone walking their dog is about the only thing you have to think about.
Yes.
But it's very freeing
Yeah.
to not have to and I think, well, if we had more traffic, like Chicago does, Chicago's got dedicated bike lanes, and I feel safer going on a dedicated bike line in the city of Chicago than I do on the streets here, even though there's less traffic, because I have to be thinking, maybe someone
Yeah, you do.
didn't put their turn signal or went through a stop sign without thinking, just,
It's also, I mean, it's safety, but it's also what's the message that you want to convey? And
Right.
if we want to convey that there's a priority for trying to get people out of cars and
Right.
on bikes when, you create the space and.
right. And I think about, places overseas like Amsterdam where they shut down entire roads and just say, there's no cars on this road anymore, it's for bikes. And how full it gets of bikes.
Paris
You know,
is-
the other
Paris-
thing that
Paris
came-
did that too recently, you know.
One of our neighbors spoke about packaging. 3 wonderful things in the month of May. So Sophie, to your point about what's the message we want to send, well, we've got Tree City USA, we've got Migratory Bird Day, we've got Arbor Day, we've got all of these things going for us. Why can't bike riding be in that umbrella instead of a thing over here? We got all this great stuff, but then there's the bikes.
It
If we
all
say,
connects.
no, this is all part of who we are, our values, this idea of value-based.
How about the story comes out at the time of the Centurion bike race that we have downtown?
Yes, that is perfect.
And so, because people are thinking about bikes, they're thinking about a bike race, and,
We believe in bikes.
yeah,
Yeah, we do.
so.
Yeah, I think it's good.
Okay.
And then, Clark, can you go over the comments that were on that map about the bike path? Because there was 1 or 2 of those that I just didn't understand.
Yeah,
You made a
so
goal in the notes?
some of those were pulled specifically from the all of those were pulled from the comprehensive land use plan update website. And basically what people can do is they can take an area on a map and put a pin and
Yep,
suggest.
I did some.
Yeah. So, these were just some general ones that Lauren had pulled from the website, updating the bike path to create a smoother trail. I think that's just talking about the actual,
I think it's relatively good, but yeah, I walk it, but.
yeah, and then railings, there was a comment of
I think
improving
that's the one I didn't
railings.
understand. Where are there railings on the bike path?
Railings.
I think you're referring to like the ones by the tunnel, like underneath the train tracks when you're going.
Oh, yeah,
I think they were referring to
yeah,
kind of bettering those railings.
yeah.
Just because
Okay.
It's a narrow,
Not really railings. There's some fence and like you won't fall into the road, but you could fall into the mud. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a comment about adding mirrors in certain areas so that
Yeah, that
pedestrians
would be
can
good.
see.
That's a smart one.
And that's a nice, quick one, too.
yeah,
Yeah.
It
That
is
could be,
hazardous
check that
right
off
there.
that list.
yes,
And then they also talked about lighting there. We've talked about lighting there for a long time, and having sensors would be the way to go. We applied for funding but we didn't get it, right?
That was
About
a
safe to
Safe Routes
Schools.
to School grant that was applied for in the past and was not
yeah.
received.
We actually did that whole landscape plan too, and the lighting along the bike path near Sheridan, and we only installed part of the little plan now. I know part of it was we couldn't even get anyone to bid on the job.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it would be nice. I know a lot of kids at night would like to, they're visiting a friend, they'd like to use that, but it's so dark. They're
True.
not, they don't feel
Yeah.
comfortable doing it.
So what happens, we've had a great discussion, but what happens now?
What I think is, this is, these are goals and notes, but like, I think we have to get to the point where we're gonna have a dedicated meeting and
Yes.
start going through and prioritizing this and making recommendations to the board, what we would like to do and what we would like to move forward in terms of implementation.
Would we ever want to do like a group little field trip, to go over to the train station together
Sure,
here, and
yeah.
then go to Lake Forest and look, or maybe
We can
there's
bring
another
our bikes.
community- we could do them on bikes.
Do it on bikes.
I don't know, it's just a
Yeah.
suggestion to look at stuff together.
Sure.
And how about, is there money for this? Is there something earmarked for?
Well, I think, like with, we mentioned about the bike racks, getting that into the budget, into the finance committee. I think we have to have a very solid recommendation, like, okay, we want mirrors, that's item number 3. We want them here, here, and here. We send a recommendation to the board, asking them to put this in their budget and to implement it. And that's really the way it goes.
Okay.
Obviously, knowing that they don't have unlimited funds every year, we may prioritize certain parts of this more than others.
So, I mean, I would feel totally comfortable saying there needs to be something there, because, I mean, I walk most days on there, and it is a little hazardous if someone's coming fast on a bike, especially multiple people. But I don't feel qualified to say there
Honey,
should
I'm in
be
a
3
meeting.
or
I can't
1,
talk now. I'm
or,
in a
I mean,
meeting.
is there some sort of,
Tesca?
yeah, who can tell us? Yeah, okay.
So that might be another thing that we look at is whether we could get Tesca, and I know that's funding for their fees, for their
Yeah.
effort, to come in and talk to us.
It might be worth it. They can give us something substantive.
If we get a comprehensive sort of list of
Yes.
what we want to look at. So it's not too piecemeal.
I think and I'm sorry I missed this, if we're gonna be implementing the bike racks this year, it'd be nice to maybe start off with seeing what that's gonna be. What the timeline is, if they have a sketch or cut sheets on the new racks.
Didn't we
Yeah.
make some recommendations about that a couple of years ago?
We did, I think, again, some of our stuff overlaps with the other boards, and what we might like from a community enhancement or sustainability might not jive with the architectural look of what they want. I think the thought was incorporating any kind of decorative logos in any of them was not preferred by the board, the architectural board. And they wanted a more plain, okay. I'm more, I just thought it was an idea for branding, especially at the train station. I understand that if you're outside a shop, you might not want a logo for the village there, but.
Have we gotten any feedback on the sort of bike station, the new bench and garbage and recycling and
On the bike path in Sheridan, near Sheridan, yeah. I like it.
feedback?
We've
I love the
received,
bench.
yeah, some comments from residents just saying that they're pleased with the repair station and with the bench. Beyond that, I haven't heard of anything negative at this point.
Good. It looks nice.
It looks good.
Yeah, and we can't at this point force the schools to do it, but the schools need to also replace theirs. They're using the same old style unsecured.
Bike racks, you mean?
Yeah. But once the village has a standard, I think there's ways to educate them as well. Okay. Village staff report?
So I don't really have too much other than to say that at the special PCZBA meeting on March 7th, the PCZBA will be hearing a missing middle housing report by our consultant Opticos. I know the missing middle housing draft report was shared
I
with you
get you.
guys. just for review if you have any comments beforehand, or if you want to come or listen in on that. It'll be an interesting discussion. It's definitely, sustainability adjacent. There's some similar elements there. So if you have comments and want to send those along to me, that would be great. And then the only other item to note is that we did submit our Bird City application, and we're just waiting to hear back on that.
Awesome. Did they give you an idea of how long their review is?
They didn't. We submitted it in January, and it sounded like the group that reviews it are volunteers and that they don't
I
meet.
think they meet once a month or something,
Yeah,
right?
they don't
She's
meet a
telling us.
ton, but that they would try to review that at their next meeting. So hopefully soon, and we'll keep you updated.
That'd be great to use that, if we're approved, at the Spike, our Dark Sky initiative as well. When you think about what birds eat, and their migration patterns and their circadian rhythms. So it would be just another kind of layer of, what we're trying to do to have a holistic approach to our village and the lifestyle and what we want to promote ourselves as.
Yeah, and I guess one more thing I will add, just because it was brought up at our, during the public comment earlier, we are looking for a speaker for May for that, for the Migratory Bird Day speaker, specifically somebody who can talk about insects and the role that plays in relation to birds. So if anybody has somebody that comes to mind that they think would be a good speaker.
Do they have to be in person?
They don't have to be.
And it would be to speak here?
Yeah, it would be to speak, maybe an hour at most presentation, maybe less, with some questions and answers. And really the goal of it being educational.
So about the role of insects in supporting migratory birds.
Yeah, the theme that the Audubon Society has chosen for the World Migratory Bird Day this year is insects. So I think it could kind of play a few different ways, but generally I would say that that's the case.
Okay, and if there's a wonderful
There.
speaker and they charge for speaking, are we looking for someone who will donate their time?
I think that's something that can be discussed, but typically we look for
Okay.
someone who would be willing to
Okay.
donate their time.
And just another thought about that, we have a lot of birders in our community, and maybe organize a bird walk. Because in May, you see a lot of the warblers going through the tops of the oak trees, eating insects.
Lake Bluff Open Lands often has,
Crabtree.
has walks available. And Lake Forest Open Lands I don't know if they're doing them this year, but they were doing them like every Monday or something. So we have places in the community that
Okay.
do that. I can try to help with insect people. I used to work at Field Museum, so. But they may want to be paid.
I know.
Anyway, I'll see.
I don't know
Or the
if
Peggy
Lake- if the
Notabart
Lake
Museum.
County
Maybe it could be a
Forest
graduate
Preserves
student.
would have any on staff, any entomologists on staff, the Lake County Forest Preserves,
They just have naturalists.
naturalists, yeah.
Yeah, there are.
The one would specialize in that.
Ryerson
I'll check
Woods,
on-
too.
I'll check on that. Yeah.
Great. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any special reports from the members?
Is this about topics that are not on the agenda, but we'd like to bring up, or?
Yeah, it could be topics you want to bring up. It could be something you read in a paper. It could be something you just want to share with us.
Okay, well, I do have something, and it's related to leaf blowers. And, we didn't get a lot of snow. So we had a lot of, enthusiastic leaf blowers. And I wanted to ask this question: what about private property owners using leaf blowers on public land? you know,
What do you mean?
well,
Were you seeing a lot of that?
yes, yes,
Like
yeah,
in a ravine or a forest, part of the forest?
along the bike path. On Sheridan Road, if you go past Crabtree, you will see private landowners have used their leaf blowers or vacuums to remove all the leaves from the ground. And so my question,
On the bike path itself.
Along the bike
Yeah,
path
that's
and
tricky 'cause
along,
it's a little hazardous.
so bike path on the east side and on the other side of the walk is IDOT property. So that's my question, and this is one case, one situation, but what's the thinking about? What's the thinking about? I believe that the leaves should be removed. It's not my property, but I don't like seeing the leaves there either. So is that covered in our ordinance?
Yeah, I'm not specifically sure about how it would be covered of someone dealing with leaves on a public space.
I know.
I don't know, because like, we have areas where the sidewalk runs technically on someone's property, although it's not their, you know what I'm saying, the edge
Sure,
of
it's
the.
an easement, yeah.
And that's a different situation, I think.
Right.
So I don't know the answer to that.
I can appreciate why they might though, you know, if you don't want wet leaves, if you're biking or.
Well, it's not on the path itself, it's on the ground on either side of the path. Just take a ride up there and you'll
So
see.
your issue is not maybe so much with the leaf blowers, it's with the removal of the leaves.
Well,
So if
it's
they were
noise.
doing it with rakes, would you still feel the same way?
No, I still believe, leave the leaves.
Right, I understand.
I still believe that, but you've got air pollution, you've got noise pollution.
Sure.
And, you know, if there's snow on the ground, it's never an issue. But I thought I would bring that up as a discussion, something for us to think about, because we've got a leaf blower ordinance that's got a start date and an end date.
For
And-
gas.
For gas, yes, for gas. And even if, I don't know, it's occurring, and I just wondered what the thinking was.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to add?
Nope.
Nothing from me. Good discussion tonight. Really excited about this ordinance.
Yes.
Yeah.
What a great report.
Yep.
Yeah, really, really
And
valuable.
great editing of our ordinance. Thank you. Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
It's warmed up today.